Hello and welcome to yet another tutorial by Davies Media Design. My name is Michael Davies, and in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to map your Wacom tablet to GIMP. So in other words, we're going to be taking our tablet here and mapping these keys that you see here on the tablet to shortcut keys and actions that are useful for GIMP. We're also going to be doing that using the touch ring here, and we're going to map the pen as well. These changes will drastically speed up your workflow and enhance the functionality of GIMP. I'll be using GIMP version 2.10.18 for this tutorial, which is the latest version of GIMP at the time of this video. But of course, before I get into that, I want to direct you guys over to my website at daviesmediadesign.com. As always, I have tons of GIMP and Inkscape tutorials on here, as well as my GIMP book of layers and GIMP and Inkscape help articles, so definitely check that out. You can enroll in my GIMP 2.10 Masterclass from beginner to pro photo editing on Udemy. You can enroll in any of my Skillshare classes by visiting gimpschool.com. And you can get more with a premium membership to Davies Media Design. Your premium membership includes access to things like my GIMP Help Center app, ebooks like my GIMP book of layers, and exclusive video content not found on YouTube. You can start your premium subscription off with a 7-day free trial, and I'll include a link to this as well as all the relevant links from this tutorial in the description of the video. Before I dive into this tutorial, I do want to mention that I have an entire tutorial dedicated to downloading and setting up your Wacom tablet for GIMP. So if you don't have your Wacom tablet set up for GIMP yet, I do recommend checking that out. I'm going to go over some of those basic properties for getting you set up with your tablet in GIMP, but I go much more in depth with that tutorial. So the other thing I want to mention is that you will need your driver for your tablet for this tutorial. And as you can see here, I just Googled Wacom driver download. You can click on the first link that pops up here that goes to the Wacom main homepage or the Wacom main website. And then right here, you could type in the model of your tablet, and you can find the model of your tablet on the back side here. So mine says PTH651/K. You can leave out the /K part. This is an Intuos Pro medium tablet. So we'll type that in here, PTH. So you can see here there's multiple results. There's the 651, which is mine, and then there's the 651 SE. So I'll just click on that. And then here it's going to give you the options to download the driver. So just click the link here, download Windows driver, or if you're using a Mac, download the Mac driver. Once you have the driver installed, you can access the settings we're going to be using for today's tutorial, and those settings are required in order to map the keys of your tablet. But first, let me show you what happens when you open up GIMP for the first time with your tablet and you don't have it properly set up. So I'll come over here to GIMP, open up the GIMP app. All right, so here we have GIMP, and I'll start by going to File, New. And I'll just go with 1920 by 1080 for my canvas size and click OK. So I have my new composition open here, and I have my paintbrush selected. And then over here in the tool options for the brush, I have a brush with a hardness of 100. And all the other settings are set to the default, except the dynamics I have set to basic dynamics. So you guys might have a slightly different result, but for me, whenever I start painting with this, you'll see it'll start out with partial transparency there, but then it'll go to full opacity as I continue painting. And it doesn't matter how much pressure I put on this, basically just the further I paint from this point on, everything is going to be opaque. And that's not how this should be. This should be pressure based. So if I have less pressure on here, it should be lighter, and more pressure, it should be darker. You guys can't see that I'm doing that here because the dynamics are not properly set up. So I'll hit Control A to select all that, and then the delete key to delete it. Control Shift A to deselect the selection area. And the reason I know that those are the dynamics that should show up is if I click this little pencil icon here, this will bring up my mapping matrix for the dynamics for this brush. So this shows me the properties here. So the opacity is pressure based. We have velocity is going to equal size. So the faster I go, the smaller the brush should be. We have tilt, so the tilt should work on this. I'm not going to go over that now, but it doesn't work right now. Just take my word for it. And we have fade based on opacity as well. And something else that doesn't really work right now, if I cycle through the menu options for my touch ring, you can see there's supposed to be auto scroll and zoom features, the ability to cycle through multiple layers, brush size, which actually does work, and then rotate, which that doesn't work either. So let's start here with auto scroll zoom. If I try to scroll in and out with the zoom, nothing's happening here. So now if I go to cycle layers, if I had a second layer here, And now I try to cycle through those layers, that's not working. And then the rotate, if I try to rotate with this, that's not working either. There are also a few other features that don't properly work right now. It's not because GIMP is broken, you just need to adjust your settings. So now what we'll do is we'll open up the Wacom settings dialog, and I can do that by coming over here to the search bar, and I'll type in Wacom. And you should have the option here for Wacom Tablet properties. So click on that. Here you have your properties, and right now you'll see under application, it just says all. There should be a GIMP application here, so you'll have to make sure you set that up. So click this plus sign here, and you can come down to GIMP 2.10. If you don't see it here, click Browse, and you're going to have to navigate to the folder that contains GIMP, which is going to be Program Files, GIMP2, Bin, and then inside of Bin, here is the GIMP program. You can click Open. So once you have that there, click OK. So now we have GIMP added here as an application. So that's the first step to getting the Wacom tablet to function properly. Let's minimize this for now. You might have to close down GIMP. I'm just going to discard the changes here. And then I'll come over here to the search bar again, type GIMP, open it back up. So now we can go to Edit, Input Devices, and here you should see your Wacom tablet show up. So now click on that Wacom tablet. So first is the eraser, and then we have the pressure stylist. Come over here to Mode and go with Screen, and then come over here to the pressure stylist, go to Screen as well. Click Save, and then close that out. And in my case, I have this little device status dialog open here. You can have that open by going to Windows, Dockable Dialogs, and then right here it says Device Status. So that's what I have here. This is showing me we have our core pointer, which is the mouse. I actually don't have a mouse plugged in right now, but it's showing up here by default. And then we have the tablet eraser and the pressure stylus. So let me just run another test here. File New, 1920 by 1080, click OK. So same settings here, basic dynamics. Now you'll see if I go light with the pressure, it'll maintain a pretty transparent brush there, but as I press harder, you'll see now this is pressure sensitive. So now it's nice and opaque. Here it is back to going to transparent. So the basic dynamics are working there. That means we're properly set up. Control A to select everything, delete to erase that. Now that that's taken care of, let's get back to the Wacom settings. So let's get to mapping out the tablet. So I'll start by coming over here to the Wacom tablet properties again. So this is the same dialog we had opened earlier. And let's start over here under functions. So these are going to be pretty much the main portion of the tablet. Again, I'm using the medium tablet. If you guys are using a different tablet, you may not have the same button options here, but I think this generally applies to all the tablets you use. It just depends on how your button layout is, etc. And you'll notice here that with functions, I don't have the GIMP application added to here. That was only added to the grip pen because that's what I had selected at that time. So I'll come back over here to functions, click to add the application, and here we have GIMP at the top, so I'll just click OK. So make sure you have the GIMP application added to both the functions and the grip pen. But you'll see here a series of keys. These are called express keys. So I have the 4 express keys on the top, the touch ring on the middle part here, and then the 4 express keys on the bottom. And by the way, it is recommended to keep your express keys oriented opposite of whatever pen hand you're using. So if you're a left-handed artist, you can just turn this around basically like so and have your express keys on the opposite side. But by default, the top express key is set to touch on or off. So there's a touch feature on here. It actually doesn't really work with this type of tablet, at least not in GIMP, and I believe it doesn't work for Windows either. So we don't really need this feature. It's a useless feature. So I'm going to change this. Let's come down here to on-screen controls, and I'm going to go with app shortcuts. So right now these app shortcuts will be set up to their default. So if I minimize this and I'm back here in GIMP, let me just click on this to make sure I'm in here. If I click that top button, that's going to bring up the app shortcuts here. So these are going to be default app shortcuts. You can see you've got copy, paste, forward, etc. So this just allows you to click on this with your pen, and then now we've copied whatever it was that we had selected here. And then for example, if I wanted to paste, I can hit that top button again, click the paste button, and that will paste this. You can see it's pasted as a floating selection here. I'm going to exit out of that. So we'll have to customize that. So in order to customize your app shortcuts, come over here to the on-screen controls. and you'll see the first option here is your app shortcuts panel. And so to edit this option, I'm going to come down here and click on this little pen icon or pencil, whatever. And you can see you can rename this. So right now it's called app shortcuts. You can name this GIMP shortcuts. And then I do like this second layout here. You can increase the size of it. So if you want it to be slightly larger, you can increase the size of it. And then I like checking the display at cursor option. That just ensures that wherever my pen tablet is located at the time that I call up this app shortcuts or the GIMP shortcuts feature, it's just going to display that little box at my cursor. So I'll click OK. So these are all the default values. I'm actually going to leave the first default value, but you can see where these are located here by coming over and clicking. So you can see copy is going to be the top left, and then after that is forward, page up, undo. So the first 4 entries are going to be on the left row, and then the second 4 will be on the right row. So you have to keep that in mind. I'm just going to exit out of there. So I'll come up top here. So I'll leave this first option at copy. The second option here, I'm going to click on this to change it, and I'll come down here to keyboard and I'll go to undo. That's a pretty common thing you do in GIMP. You undo your actions. You can, of course, just hit Control-Z on the keyboard, but if you don't want to keep going back and forth between the keyboard and the tablet, this will make things faster. Another shortcut key I'll use is Select All. So I'll come over here to the keyboard option, the keystroke option. So we'll go keyboard, keystroke. So this portion allows you to type whatever shortcut key you want. So I'm going to clear this out, and I want this to be Select All. The shortcut key for that in my GIMP is Control-A. If you're using a Mac, it's probably Command-A. But all I have to do here is hit Control-A, and that will record my keystrokes there. If that didn't work, make sure this is set to Add Special before you perform that action. So this is telling me that whenever I click my mouse on that square inside the little panel that pops up here, it's going to run the shortcut Control-A. And then this is saying that this is called Page Up. I'm actually going to delete this and name it Select All, so it's more descriptive of what this is actually doing, and I'll click OK. So now we have Copy, Undo, and Select All. The last one I'm going to add for this row is going to be that search box feature in GIMP. So let me click on it, go to Keyboard, Keystroke, and for this one I'm going to use the / key, and then I'm going to click on the name here and type Search Actions, and click OK. So let's review what we have going on right now. So I'll come over here. If I click that top button on my tablet, you'll see we have Copy, Undo, Select All, and Search Actions. So let me just demonstrate. If I click on this with my pen, that brings up my Search Actions features. I can type in something like levels, double click on this, and that will bring up my levels dialog. So that's the first column. Let's come back here and do the second column. So the opposite to copy, of course, will be paste. Undo would be redo. Select all would be select none. And then I'll add another feature opposite of search actions. So paste is already here. If you don't have it already, you can click on this, go to keyboard, and then keystroke. And all you have to do is hit the Control-V key here. That will record your strokes. Type in paste for the name and click OK. But the next action I want to do is going to be the redo action. So I'll go to keyboard and redo. After that, we have select none, so I'll click on this, keyboard, keystroke. I'll hit the clear button here and hit Control-Shift-A. That's the shortcut key for select none. And I'll come down here to name, and we'll type select none. Click OK. So the last action I want to set up is the ability to center up my image here on my window. So if I come to GIMP and I go over to my navigation dialog I have here, you'll see there's some room on the right side here. This isn't fully zoomed out. If I hit Control-Shift-J, that will zoom it out so that my composition, my canvas fits perfectly inside the image window. I want that to be quickly accessible, so I'll come back here to the tablet, come over to keystroke, and clear this out, and hit Control-Shift-J. Come over here, and I'll name this center image. Click OK. So now that option has been added to our little menu. So we'll come back to GIMP and we'll turn on our menu. It has the title there, GIMP Shortcuts. Here you can see all the shortcuts we've added here. And if you ever wanted to edit these directly without having to go through searching for the Wacom Tablet properties on your computer and everything, just click this little gear icon and that will bring up your tablet properties. So we'll exit out of that. And I'll come back to my Express keys. So here you'll see we're actually on the All Other tab, so I need to switch over here to the GIMP tab, and there you'll see our GIMP shortcuts change has taken hold. So make sure you're on the right tab as you're working throughout your Express keys and the other shortcut keys on here, just to make sure your changes are applying inside of GIMP. So the first Express key is set up for GIMP shortcuts. The second one, however, is set up for settings. So this, when I turn this on, is going to, let me come over here to GIMP. If I toggle that on, it's going to bring up all of the settings I have set up for my Express keys and the touch ring, as well as my pen. I'll hit that button again to hide it. So I do like having that, but I'm going to come up here. I don't want it as the second button. I want this to be a button that's better for my workflow. In my case, I know I access the paintbrush tool a lot, so I'm going to have this button set up to be able to easily access the paintbrush tool, and then I'll move these settings down to one of the lower Express keys. So I'll come over here, and to set this up to my paintbrush, what I'll do is go to keyboard and then keystroke. And I know the shortcut key for the paintbrush tool in GIMP is the P key. So I'll click on that, and then I'll click on this with my pen here, and I'll type paintbrush. That way we know what this is, and I'll click OK. So now when I come over here to GIMP and I click that second button, instead of these settings popping up, now it's grabbed my paintbrush tool, and that's just a quick way to be able to access that tool. I'll hit Control Z to undo that. Let's go back to the properties. The third key is the precision mode key, and I'm actually going to keep this key where it's at because I do use this key a lot, especially when I'm working in tight areas whenever I'm erasing a background or just painting a very small area, a detailed area. So if I come over here to GIMP, holding that third button, that'll enter precision mode. That just makes your brush strokes smaller, and it just makes it easier to be able to paint details, paint small areas without screwing up. So I do like having that. I'll hit Control Z. Coming back to the properties here, the last option for me on my Express keys, the fourth option, is the display toggle option. This is only useful for people using multiple displays. A lot of you, like me, are only going to have a single display, so you don't really have a use for this feature. So let's map this to something a bit more useful to our workflow. In my case, I want to map this to my spacebar because the spacebar in GIMP is like the hand tool in other programs. So you'll actually see down here, this says pan and scroll. That doesn't actually work. So in this case, I'm going to come over here to keyboard, keystroke, hit the spacebar, and then come over here, and I'm just going to name this hand tool. I don't think that's what GIMP actually calls this, but that's basically what it is. I'll click OK. Come back here to GIMP, and now when I hover my finger over that fourth button, you'll see it says hand tool there. If I click and hold it down and I move my pen around, that just allows me to easily navigate around my image. You can see over here in the navigation panel. So anytime I'm zoomed in and working, this just makes it easier to, like using a hand tool, move around on the canvas. So let's come back to the properties. We'll skip over the touch ring. We're going to get to that in a moment. But the next three keys I'm actually going to leave alone because these are pretty commonly used modifier keys in GIMP. So you have Shift, Control, and Alt. These allow you to do various things like cycle between tool settings inside your tool options, among other things. So I will keep these three. But the bottom one here doesn't work. It's set to pan scroll right now. That's not going to really do anything in GIMP. So what I'll do is click on this. And I told you guys I do like having that settings option, so I'm going to click on that. And now our settings are back, but instead of it being the first button, now it's going to be down here at the bottom. So I'll click on that one more time to get rid of it. Come back to the properties. All right, so all of our Express keys are now set up. Let's move on to the touch ring. I think it's very common for people when they open up GIMP and their tablet for the first time, they're going to go straight for the touch ring and see, what kind of functionality it's going to have. But it doesn't work for the most part, especially on the very first setting you have here. So people jump to a conclusion that the tablet doesn't work at all with GIMP. It's actually not true. It's just that the tablet isn't mapped properly for GIMP settings. So the tablet says, for example, up here in the top left, that this is supposed to work. The first menu here, when that light is lit up, that's supposed to be able to scroll or zoom on your image in GIMP. But when you go to GIMP, and right now you'll see here the first light on my tablet there on the touch ring is lit up. If I try to move my finger counterclockwise or clockwise, nothing is happening here. So it's a misconception that that means this is broken and it's never going to work. But all we have to do is map this ring to the shortcut keys for GIMP that allow you to zoom in or out. So the shortcut key to zoom in with GIMP is going to be the Shift key and then the plus key. So if I hit Shift plus, you'll see that allows me to zoom in. And then if I just hit the minus key without Shift, that allows me to zoom out. All we have to do is map the touch ring to that. So I'll come over here to the properties, and the top left portion here, we'll click on that. Ignore all these options here, go to keystroke. So you'll see here we have two different text boxes here. The top one is for the counterclockwise motion with your finger around the touch ring. The bottom is for the clockwise motion. So let's go with counterclockwise first. So I'll click on that. We want this to zoom out, and the zoom out button is just that little minus button. The minus key is going to be sandwiched between the plus key and the 0 key on your keyboard. So that should allow us to zoom out when we go counterclockwise. On the other hand, going clockwise, we want that to zoom in, so Shift plus, that's the shortcut key to zoom in. I'll come over here and type zoom in / out GIMP and click OK. So now we've mapped this to zoom in or out. So if I come over here to GIMP, let's try that out. So I can just click here, you can see it's labeled there. And now when I go counterclockwise, it zooms out. Clockwise, it'll zoom in. All right, so I'll come back to the properties. So the second menu option here, the top right option, is supposed to cycle the layers. So if I go counterclockwise, it should basically select the next layer up. If I go clockwise, it should select the layer down. Of course, that's not what happens. Right now, nothing happens when we use the touch ring on this second menu option here for cycle layers. So again, I need to map this to the shortcut keys. So I'll come over here, click on this drop down, and we'll go to keystroke. So this is going to be the shortcut key by default for this. I'll hit clear because that doesn't work in GIMP. In GIMP, it's actually page up, and then I'll click on here. So page up going counterclockwise will select the layer above, and then here I'll click clear again. Page down is going to be the shortcut key in GIMP to select the layer below. And you can keep this named cycle layers, it's the same function, so I'll click OK. So now let's come over here to GIMP, we'll create a new layer, and let's just name this top layer. Click OK. And we'll switch the menu here to cycle layers. And now if I go clockwise, you'll see that'll go downwards, select the layer below. Counterclockwise, that'll go upwards and select that top layer. If your shortcut keys are not the same for that, just go to Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts, and if you type in Layer, and we can scroll down here. So here you'll see it says Select Next Layer, Page Down, Select Previous Layer, Page Up. So you can see what your shortcut keys are here. If there's nothing assigned, just click on it, type in a new combination of keywords, and that will set up your new shortcut key. I'm just going to exit out of that and come back to the properties. So the brush size, as I think I alluded to at the beginning, does work. So if I click on this, go to keystroke, these are indeed the shortcut keys to increase or decrease the size of your brush in GIMP. So hit cancel, we don't need to do anything there. However, this next option here is to rotate. So this doesn't say specifically what you're rotating. There is the rotate tool in GIMP. There's also the ability to rotate the canvas. I would assume that this is referring to the latter option to rotate your canvas. So that's what I'm going to set this up for today because that is a useful feature if you're doing something like digital painting. But in order to do that, we have to figure out a shortcut key for that. And by default, inside of GIMP, there is no shortcut key for that. So I'll go to Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts, and let's bring this in the center. And we'll just decrease the size of this real quick. Now, if I type Rotate, you'll see we have various options here. So under View, we have an option for rotate 15 degrees clockwise, and then there's also rotate 15 degrees counterclockwise. So these were the options I went with for rotating my canvas. And you'll see I already assigned a shortcut to this. So what I did was I clicked on this and I typed in a shortcut I wasn't already using. And in my case, I went Alt, Shift, and for rotating counterclockwise, I did the period key, which is going to be that right bracket key. I think that's called a bracket. And then for the rotate counterclockwise option, I did the opposite. So I did Alt, Shift, and then the comma key. So that set up that new shortcut key, and I'll click Save. So we can exit out of here, come back over here, So we want this to rotate our canvas, so I'll come over here to the drop down, go to keystroke. So counterclockwise, we want to rotate the canvas in that direction, counterclockwise as well. So for this one, I'll do Alt Shift and then the comma key, and then come over here, Alt Shift, period key, and on here we'll type rotate canvas for the name, and I'll click OK. All right, so there is the fourth menu option there. So I'll come back to GIMP, and let's just click on the tablet here, the touch ring, the center of the touch ring, to bring up rotate canvas. So now when I rotate my touch ring counterclockwise, there it rotates the canvas, and now I'm going clockwise, so it's rotating the canvas clockwise, and this is by 15-degree increments. There is actually another way to rotate your canvas based on how I'm going to set up my tablet. I'm going to get into that in a moment, but that is going to be it for the touch ring options. Next up, I'm going to cover setting up the pen. So I'm going to come over here to my menu, and we've been on the functions tool this whole time. Now let's go over here to the grip pen. So this is of course going to be the pen you're using with your tablet. And make sure you're on the right application again, so go to GIMP 2.10. So I can adjust the sensitivity here for my pen, but the only thing I'm really interested in here, let me just click default to reset this. So right now on my pen I have these two little options for clicking. So I have the smaller button here and then I have a larger button. Right now this is set up so that the smaller button is the right click and the larger button is a double click. I'm actually going to change the double click option here. So I'll go to clicks and middle click. And the reason I want this to be middle click is that there are a lot of functions that occur with the middle mouse click. So usually that's going to be your mouse wheel. Of course, we don't have a mouse. We don't have a mouse wheel right now. So that's why I'm setting this up as the middle click option. Let me come over here to GIMP to demonstrate. So for example, I'll go to colors, saturation. And if I come over here, usually you can middle click on this number and that allows you to type in manually a number. So if I middle click on that using that new preset we just set up, now I can manually type in whatever number I want for the scale. And I'll click OK. So that's one use for that middle click. Another use for the middle click, if I hold the shift key on my express keys here, and then I hold the middle click button we just set up on the pen, now I can rotate the canvas in smaller increments. Also, if I hold the next key here, which is the control key, I can rotate this once again in 15-degree increments. So we set that up with the touch ring, which I think is a bit more convenient, but this is just another way to do that. And then one other thing I want to show you, if I only hold the control key in that middle click button, that actually allows us to quickly zoom in and out of the image. So that's just another function there of that middle click. So I can reset my canvas by clicking on the GIMP shortcuts and come down here to center image. Now we're back to center. And I'll come over to the Wacom Tablet properties. That's pretty much everything here, so I'll exit out of here. One last thing I want to note is that if you want your eraser to automatically grab the eraser every time, all you have to do is flip your pen over so it's upside down, and GIMP should recognize that you have your upside down pen here. It's kind of hard to see the mouse right now because of the small crosshairs that show up here. But I'll come over and click on the eraser tool. That will select the eraser tool now every time I have my eraser set up or every time I have my pen upside down. If I flip it right side up now, and then come over here and let's click on the paintbrush. So now we have our paintbrush selected here, flipping the pen upside down, that's the eraser. Flip it back right side up, there's the paintbrush. All right, so that's it for this tutorial. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, you could check out my channel at youtube.com/daviesmediadesign. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified each time I have a brand new tutorial. You can also check out any of the links to my resources in the description of the video. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.